Hi everybody, this is Peschu. Welcome to my channel. In the next few videos, I want to talk about market efficiency and welfare loss. But in order to do that, we need to learn first about consumer and producer surplus. So today's video will do that. It will introduce you to the consumer and producer surplus. You will see how they are being calculated, and then having and knowing those, you will be able to later understand market efficiency, why we say a certain market is efficient and other markets are inefficient, and just do market analysis. Okay, so let's start with consumer surplus first. And we'll do this with a diagram because it will help to understand the concept. So imagine that this is a demand curve for a small market, and let's say we'll add some prices. Let's say this is 10, this would be 9, and over here we'll have 1, 8, 2, 7, and so on. Obviously, my drawing is not exactly to scale, but it will serve the purpose. Now, let's say that there is let's finish this. 6, we'll add here the fourth person, 5, this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 again, and then let's say that's the lowest price. We cannot get it below 5. Okay, now imagine that there's 5 people in this market in total, and the first one is willing to pay $9 for this unit, right? This is the point that shows the first one. So we have 5 people who make this demand curve, and the first one is ranking this, let's call it widget, at a value of $9. Effectively, what this means is that the utility, the satisfaction this person is receiving from this widget would be equivalent to $9. Now, the second person, however, he or she is only willing to pay $8. The third person is willing to pay 7, the fourth is 6, the fifth is 5, and that's it. There's only 5 people in this market. So the fifth person is willing to pay 5 because for him that's how much this product is actually valued. And as a practical example, if you think about it, sometimes when you go to the store to buy something, you are willing to spend a certain amount of money. Let's imagine that it's autumn and you're looking for a winter jacket because you don't have one or you need to buy a new one. You go to the store and you don't know what is the exact price of a jacket. So you go and you start browsing the jackets, but you go with the intention of spending about a certain amount of money. Let's say you're willing to spend about $100. Yeah. So you go to the store and you know that you will not be spending, let's say, more than 110, because for you that will be the maximum amount that you're willing to spend for such item. However, if you go and actually find that the price is 110, you'll be happy with that because you were willing to spend $110. If on the other hand you go and you find that the price is more than 110, you say, no, this is too expensive. I was only willing to go up to 110. If you go and you find that the price is less than 110, let's say 80, you will buy the jacket and you're like, oh wow, this is good. I was willing to spend 110, but I got it for 80. It's as if I saved $30. And that difference between the actual price and the price the consumer is willing to pay is what is known as a consumer surplus. And we can illustrate this. let's add a demand, well, we have a demand, let's add a supply curve. So this is my supply curve, and we have an equilibrium at the moment at point E. So if we want to find out the total consumer surplus that we are having in this case, well, we can do the following. Now, the first person was willing to spend, in this case, $9. However, this is the equilibrium price, 7. So effectively, the first person will be getting a $2 consumer surplus. That's just for the first guy, right? And we can illustrate this. This difference between 9 and 7 for the first guy would be his or her consumer surplus. Yeah. Now, the second person was willing to spend $8. Of course, he's buying the widget at the market price of 7, so he's getting a $1 extra. You know, he's saving it. So that will be his consumer surplus over here. Now, the third person was willing to spend $7, but the market price is $7. So he or she will get this unit. They will buy it. They're willing and able to, you know, pay the price. So they will buy this unit, but there will be 0 consumer surplus for this person here. Now, the fourth and the fifth, they do not value this product as much as the market does. You know, they're willing to spend only 6 or 5. The price is 7, so they will not be buying them. So we're not really interested. They have no consumer surplus because they haven't really purchased the product. But in this diagram, we can see that the sum of the first and the second person, well, and the third one, his or her consumer surplus is 0, but it still goes into the equation. So the total consumer surplus in this case would be 2 for the first one, 1 for the second one, and 0 for the third. So 2 plus 1 plus 0, i.e. $3. You know, which is, in a simple example like this, not a bad idea. You know, actually, you know, it may be good, it may be bad. It depends on the market. That's not what we're really concerned with. We just want to be able to calculate it. Now, if we consider that, you know, this is not a market for widgets, but something bigger and with more consumers, the same principle still applies. Let's see. So let's say this is my demand, this is my supply, and you know, in the real world, sometimes a single person may be buying more units, you know, not just one unit, but the same kind of analysis would still apply. Effectively, the people, and it doesn't matter how many of them they are, the people who are willing to spend at least PE would in total buy QE units for this product. So we can think of this, you know, imagine it as a series of small columns, but effectively, let me just extend this demand curve like this. Effectively, you know, if we take this to, you know, just per unit basis, this will be made up of thousands, you know, or even more small columns, and you can just estimate the total consumer surplus as the area of this triangle here, of this E, PE, and then whatever the intersection point is. If you have these coordinates, you would be able to calculate the area of the triangle, given that the demand is a linear function. Otherwise, you know, in a more complicated and sophisticated analysis, this would actually use integrals. But we're not really concerned with that. What we really want to do is just to understand where this consumer surplus comes from. And this is what it is. It's for every single consumer on the market, the difference between what he or she was willing to pay minus what the actual price was. You sum all of these together and you get this area here, and that's your consumer surplus. All of this, the red stuff. Now, similarly, we have something called a producer surplus. And if you understand the consumer surplus, the producer surplus is almost identical. It simply happens from the perspective of the producer. So let's clean this up. Now, a producer, he or she is willing and able to buy a product. A producer is willing and able to sell a product for a given price. This is our definition of supply. So in our example, let's look at the supply curve. It will be something upward sloping, like this, let's say. And this supply illustrates for every unit, at what price would the total producers be willing to sell, and will be able to sell this widget or whatever product it is. Now let's take a price, PE. It's determined by the market. This can be our demand, like that. Okay. Now, what this actually is showing us is that we can calculate the difference between what every firm is willing to sell the item for and how much they're actually getting for it. Because look at this. The first firm, they'll be willing to sell this unit for the price of P1. However, they're not going to sell it for P1 if they can get PE for it. They're going to sell it for PE. So we'll get this difference between the price that the firm is willing to sell the item and what the actual item is worth to the consumers on the market. So this difference, we'll not call this profit. Profit is different. But this will represent the producer surplus for that first firm. For the second firm, let's say they will be willing to sell it at the price P2. But of course, they'll benefit from the higher market price, and they'll get, again, this difference. And this will be the producer surplus for the firm P2. And you can do incremental steps until you reach the equilibrium point and see how much every item is benefiting its producer. But what we are going to do is just precisely take the whole area, so the entire green triangle, and this will be my producer surplus. And on the top, as we saw, let me just extend this demand like this, we can have the consumer surplus. Okay, again, do not confuse these with, let's say, some form of savings or profit. They can contribute to both, but they're different concepts. The consumer surplus is simply the difference between what the consumer is willing to pay for the product and what he or she is actually paying for. And the producer surplus is kind of the same thing from the perspective of the producer. What the producer is, the price, the difference between the price that the producer receives and the price that he or she was actually willing and able to sell this unit for. Okay guys, that's it for this lesson. We'll wrap things up, and in the next one we are gonna look at market efficiency and see how these concepts of consumer and producer surplus relate to the market. And we'll see why we call certain markets efficient and other markets inefficient. Okay, I hope you enjoyed this lesson. If you liked it, please hit the like button. If you haven't liked it, then let me know in the comments what you would like to see and how this lesson can be improved. If you want, please subscribe. It will help. And take care of yourselves. I hope to see you again.